the place where I wanted to start tonight is kind of interesting. So there's actually like multi-prong about where I want to start. Um, so the first kind of pillar is when you're putting out content about listening, and whether that's through engaging in the comments or one of the tactics that I use right now and have been using for the past 6 months, which has been super helpful for me, is that I'll actually comment on other people's posts and then let the engagement on that comment tell me whether or not the idea was smart. And so that's a really interesting insight. You can use that. So like, I know what my threshold is. Like my threshold is if I post a comment and I get 25 likes on that comment, basically my audience has told me that whatever I said was smart and I should go into more depth on it. And then I go and break that down into a post or a series of posts after that. And so you all will have your own kind of like barometer of how many, like what's the kicker when you realize that it's a winner. And then you can go and dive in more depth. So there was one today, and I'm actually just going to pull it up here. That was basically, it said, are you a content forward strategy or demand forward strategy? And the question is like, do you build content based on the places in your pipeline and to match with the buyer's journey, or do you demand forward, which is work backwards into your numbers and then back into what content you need to create for that? And my comment that happened 4 hours ago, the answer was neither. Build content to support your audience, not your funnel. And so far that's gotten 29 likes, so that'll end up getting close to 50 or 75 total. And so I want to go deeper into that point, unpack that with Gaetano, because I would say a majority of marketers doing this in a way that I think that could be better. And so when I create content, there's never a thought in my mind of how this leads into selling something. I know that I'm going after CMOs or VPs of marketing, and I'm entirely driven on creating content that helps them. And knowing that at some point it might create a sales opportunity, but there's no intent on that. And I think a lot of people fall into a place where they create content with the idea that it's going to move someone into some type of funnel to buy something, which then makes the content not very good because it's actually for you, not for the audience. And so, yeah, I just want to get started with that, G, and let you go a little deeper there.
Yeah, I think that, this is a great topic. The way I think about this is actually by content type. And I have a couple of like proven content styles and content types that I know work. And it is really all about aligning it to the audience, like you're saying. I don't create FAQs because I know it's going to drive sales. I create FAQs because I know it's going to be helpful. And then it's going to drive sales. Right? So here's the thing. This is the oldest trick in the playbook, but you need to listen to sales calls if you're a marketer. And then you think about the objections that are happening on those sales calls, and you listen to those, and you create FAQ content on landing pages that objection handle what that common trend and that common pattern of problems or pains are on those calls. And then you get feedback from sales when you build these landing pages, right? Like, is this feature widely talked about on calls or not? Because sometimes, product marketing will say, our analytics is the greatest thing since sliced bread. The analytics component of our product is a differentiator. No one on the market has this. And then you listen to sales call, and like, no one's talking about analytics. No one cares. Right? So who gives a shit if the audience doesn't care about it? Like, it may add value. Yes. It may be a nice to have. Yes. But at the end of the day, if you are just trying to create content and you want to say, I want to align this to top of funnel. Ooh, this sounds like middle of funnel. Ooh, this sounds like in between middle and bottom. Like you said, you're just spinning wheels, right? Mm-hmm. So like you're saying, Chris, two really big points is cater to the audience, know who this is for, and make it the best possible quality without being salesy. Like, put yourself in that buyer's shoes and say, if I'm buying, if I'm trying to buy XYZ software, what are the things that I want to know? And what's going to guide me into really making an informed decision, right? So you're an information giver, not not the sales whisperer. So that's my rant for topic one today.
And this works across any type of audience. So if you think about it, I'll just give you my example. The way that I think about it is that the thing that I'm going for in my content is the attention, not the sale. And I know if I get the attention that it will create sales opportunities. And so my only objective is, how do I get a lot more CMOs to enjoy the content? And then I spend time with CMOs, and there's a recurring kind of thing. I think for a lot of content marketers or people that create content, they just don't have a continuous stream of engagement with whoever they're trying to create content for. And so I think that's a good takeaway. So again, anyone has questions, feel free to drop them in. I have a couple to get started here. If we're okay to jump in, you got anything you want to add before we jump into questions?
No, I'm good. We can just roll with it.
Right on. And we have a little bit of a smaller audience than we have the last couple of weeks. So this is a really good opportunity if you want to go into like a place where there's a lot of follow-ups and things like that. We can go deep into something that you're specifically working on. So let's get started here. This one's from Christian. Actually, Christian, I mean, you sent it to me. I can read it, or you can read it, or if you remember which one, you sent it to me in email earlier.
Yeah. There were some words in there for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have it up? Do you have it handy right now?
I got it up. I'll take
go
it
for
you. You attached a comment that I made, which said, I modeled the behavior that I think most companies should be doing, which I think is unique to someone that's doing a marketing service. But it says, I model the behavior that I should be doing. It's quite ridiculous that I put out more high quality content every day than most $50 million companies do. It is quite ridiculous that we have 5 people in my company and mainly just me and one other person working on content, and I'm able to do that. And so your question was, with all the simple technology available to create quality content, what do you think is holding companies back from this? G, you want to take this, or I can get started, whatever you want.
Why don't you get started, and then I'll rant off of that.
Cool. I think this is a multifaceted, multi-layer issue in companies. So, and it also depends on where this company is, what industry they're on. There's the leadership, there's a lot of different variables, but I think it comes down to a couple of things. One is that I honestly don't think that companies realize how important it is. I think that's as simple as it is, whether it's at the executive level or at the general marketing director level. I just don't think companies realize how important it is to put out content, because they're doing the things that a lot of people were taught to do 15 years ago to generate revenue. And the second one, I think it ends up always coming back to culture, whether or not they think it's important, or the metrics that their company scores them on doesn't incentivize them to do it. And so I would like to see most companies create an arm inside of their marketing department. Companies that have over 10 marketing employees create an arm inside of their company that their main KPI is attention, not sales, and therefore creates content that is solely focused on the audience. And so I think more companies will adopt that type of style over time, I think innovative companies are already doing it, like Outreach bought Sales Hacker. Like, that was an interesting play. Like, they basically bought a media entity. So yeah, I think it comes down to most companies are not that interested in it yet.
Yeah, excellent points. To add to that, there's a few other things. One is that companies, unfortunately, marketing teams lack the topical expertise, the subject matter knowledge necessary to create relevant content for those buyers. And I'll give you a perfect example. Perfect. When I was leading the SEO team at Pipedrive, we didn't have any, like the audience was salespeople. The product is a sales CRM. And unfortunately, there was a bunch of marketers just trying to figure out shit that salespeople cared about, and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get it. And the content just flat out sucked because it didn't really speak in the way that salespeople would recognize as a fellow peer. So people want to see sales content, right? If the audience is sales, that's why Sales Hacker worked, because we said, you know what? We know that peer and community content. So we get contributors from other companies who are in sales. So we got, I think we even had a contribution from Mark, right? We got Mark on a number of webinars, right? You name it. I mean, we had everybody, all the big names in sales. We had Keenan, Rob Jepson, John Barrows, so on and so on and so on and so on, because they have that subject matter expertise. So that was one issue that I see companies really getting wrong, is they don't have the subject matter expertise, especially if you're doing some like IT content or you're creating content for CIOs. Some run-of-the-mill marketer, like some content writer, is never going to be able to create CIO content. Never. You're never going to be able to scrape the top 10 results in Google and mix mash it, back together and think that a CIO is not going to be able to read straight through that. So the big problem is that they're lacking the subject matter expertise, and they're not taking the time to like tap the people in their company who know about these subjects and create the content that revolves around the subject expert. That's a huge problem that I see.
Yeah, you created a couple other thoughts in my mind, which I think is interesting, is that some companies will try to create content and write 3 blogs and then not deem it not working, and then quit and go back to doing whatever dumb shit they were doing before. And so that's another one. And then the last one, which I think is super interesting for, I would say 99.9% of companies, is that they don't know how to distribute it, aside from SEO.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of them don't even know the SEO part. So here's like the deadly, here's the deadly wheel of doom for content production. If you are not creating content that's going to rank in search engines, you don't know how to distribute it, you have no social media presence, you have a small email list, you're not good at co-marketing, who the hell is going to be paying attention to you?
No one's going to find it.
Who's going to find this content? Right. So then they get into this other rhythm of like producing content, and they can't get it out, and then it fails. Like of course it will, and they give up. So when you have all these things working against you, I mean, it's no wonder that so many companies are destined for failure. There's some crazy stat from, I think, Ahrefs or one of these companies that says like 90% of content like gets no traffic, gets no shares, and gets no links. Mm-hmm. So I'll pause there and allow for some commentary.
Yeah, I mean, I go in and audit maybe somewhere between 3 and 7 SaaS companies per month. And one of the first things I do is I go to Google Analytics and I go into their website. I find their #1 case study, whichever one I think is the most interesting and meaningful. I find that case study, and then I go to Google Analytics and I look at how many views it had in the past 6 months, and most of them have less than 25. And so that tells me a couple things. One, it tells me they don't know how to distribute content. The second thing it tells me is their sales team isn't using it. The third thing that's telling me is the people on their website are not able to find it. And then all you do is you take that case study and you put $1,000 of media behind it on Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or however you can best get to your audience, and magically 1,000 people in your target see it. And so, and it really does make a difference. And so, I think that basically what it comes down to, create quality content, which is hard enough. And then how do you get people to actually see it? Organic ads, SEO, any of those types of approaches can work. And
let's keep going on this for a second. The topic of content quality. Mm. What is good quality? What does that mean? How do you know if it's good? What do you measure it by? How do you figure this out?
It's a great question.
What does 10x? What does 10x mean? Everyone loves that phrase, 10x. It's got to be 10x better. What is 10x, right? So the thing that I always tell my team, no matter what you're producing, is you have the best free tool in the world that's going to help you stack up against what's good. And that, and not, it's not always perfect, but it could really help a lot, which is good old Google, right? If you're creating, the ultimate guide to sales development, you better search sales development in Google. You better see what the top 10 results look like. And then you need to figure out what can you make unique about your content that you're building. Do the top 10 results lack graphics, lack expert videos, lack data, lack data visualization, right? All these things. What is the missing component that you can bring to the table? Is it all dry, stuffy, robotic content from non-subject matter experts, right? All these things you need to be looking at to really determine how do I differentiate from a content quality standpoint, and then think about distribution. How can I go about this beyond just SEO?
Mm-hmm. One way, and I've been doing this since I would get 5 likes on my LinkedIn post a year ago, is that the way that I continue to this day, and I do it for myself and for companies that we work with under their corporate logos, is that I measure the success of content based on 2 things, or actually 3 things. One, how much consumption is happening. So you can look and see if it's a blog post, you can see how much people are reading it on average, which is an obvious one. But the second 2 I think are more unique, which is the next one is the people that are liking the post. I click inside and see who they are, and I see if they're the right people. And the third one is the people that are commenting, who are they and what are they saying? And so those 3 things tell me when the CRO of a $500 million company tags his 3 or 4 marketing people in a post that I made, I know that that was a good post. It gives me that feedback. And so those are some things that those couple things don't show up in a HubSpot report or in a Salesforce dashboard, but they really do tell you the story at the micro content level.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool. So we got one coming in here.
Let's bounce around to the next topic.
Yeah. So Lonnie got it right this time. Do you want to ask your question, or you prefer that I do? Okay, I'm going to give it a shot then. So it's the question was, I'd love to hear more about how to use trade shows or lack thereof through digital content, virtual summits, etc.
All right, I guess you want me to take this one, Chris?
Yeah.
All right. So to make sure I understand the question is the question, what are you doing now since trade shows are dead?
Yeah, let's go that direction. And then
okay.
if she wants to clarify, she can jump in.
Cool. Yeah, Lonnie, if you want to clarify, go for it. But I think the way I'll interpret that is, what are you doing now since trade shows are dead? And if that was like a big part of your marketing strategy and it's no longer part of your marketing strategy, what are you doing? And the answer is actually very simple. It's looking inward and, going all out on digital, right? So content, SEO, we're not ramping up our ads, but we're getting more efficient with our ads. Where we're investing more time is the quality of the landing pages, messaging. We're rethinking our messaging strategy, right? So the company I work for, Nextiva, is a cloud communications provider. And we're seeing a massive surge for cloud phone systems, audio conferencing software, the mobile app. We also have a desktop soft phone app. So the idea is that you no longer need a desk phone. You can just run your calls right from your MacBook or your PC through the Nextiva app within your computer. And because we're seeing such an incredible surge of demand for these products, the obvious next step is to refactor the messaging on our homepage, our key product pages, our PPC pages, to focus on those features and messaging points that are relevant to today's environment. So work from anywhere, enabling remote teams, stay connected all the time, our incredible reliability, our reviews on the App Store, right? all these things without bashing competition and without being insensitive to what's going on. These are the ways that we take effort and focus back into our digital side. And we would have been spending that on trade shows and events, but we just take that effort and that time and put it back into digital. And actually, everyone, there's a unanimous consensus across my marketing team that we never want to do events again. We literally never want to do events again. We are so happy that there's no more events. I can't tell you how everybody's jumping for joy. Like, we're sad about what's happening. I see Ariane smiling there. Probably others are too, but like, marketers are jumping for joy right now. We're like, yes, we know, Matthew jumping for joy right now, right? We're like, yes, we no longer have to spend $70K on a shitty overpriced booth. Yes, we can finally focus on shit that we're really good at. Like, yes, we don't have to like go in with sales and create this big kind of like game plan of who are we going to prospect and all this stuff. Like, Ariane's just like, yep. Because every trade show, you know what happens. Your CFO or whoever, CRO, is going to say, look, guys, the booth costs this, the transport costs this, the swag costs this, this costs that. Altogether, our total investment for this event is looking like, 120 G's, whatever the case may be. Now, from just a pure number standpoint, we're pouring this in. What are we getting out? And no one knows how to really say like what that could be because it's too hard, right? It's just too hard. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm going off here, but like, basically,
sounds like you really needed to let that out.
Yeah. The takeaway here is that companies are actually really happy about this. The ones that are spending, because it's far more trackable, and there's far more confidence in what we can do digitally than on the road. And I know there are a lot of people that still believe that events are like one of the best ways to get leads and prospect and you can't beat that FaceTime in-person thing. There's something special about that. But from what I am seeing, we're really happy about this. And I'll pause there, allow for some reaction and some commentary.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different direction. I think you covered that one nicely. One thing, when I led marketing in a startup, I was asked to do a lot of events. And so I'll just drop a little idea here for those that lead marketing, is that what I said is that if, because sales is the one pushing you to the trade show, marketers actually don't want to do it. And so what I said is if sales would like to go to the trade show, then it could come out of their budget. And we will support them however is needed. And what happens when you say that is that instead of going to 8 expensive trade shows, you go to 2 meaningful ones. And so just an idea, it's kind of a dick move, but it did work out really, really well for me. And now in the other direction, I want to just go really tactical on virtual summits or events. I'm sure a lot of people are either like doing them or thinking about them or whatever. You had a user conference and now, you can't do it. So you got to move that online, or you didn't have a user conference, but everyone's doing one. So now you want to do one, or you just want to do a webinar in a more frequent manner to stay in touch with your customers. Any of those can work here. So a couple things that have been working really well for us. We're running this play for probably 6 of our SaaS clients currently. So we're using predominantly Facebook paid and LinkedIn paid to drive registrations through into the event. Okay. And when you say that, there are a lot of different ways to do that. And I think we have figured out the best way to do it. So the first one is, are you going to send them to a landing page, or are you going to do direct conversion inside of a native form? We've run these tests. I've run these tests since 2016. The native form works better by somewhere between 3x and 10x better conversion rates. You should use the native form, but know that when you use the native form, you will get mostly free emails, not work emails. So it's up to you whether you want to spend $7 a registration on Facebook with the direct lead gen, or $70 per registration and get a work email. I choose the free email. And then if you want to enrich later or have someone do manual data entry to get the actual work email, it's pretty simple to do. So that's the first thing that I'd recommend. The second thing that I'd recommend is that you got to have a connection between, if you're using a native lead gen, which I strongly suggest you do, you need to have a connection with that into your marketing automation system. And so if you use Pardot or Marketo, I'm not sure if Marketo supports a native. I don't think that they do. I know Pardot, we have to use Zapier, which fucking sucks. And then in HubSpot, it's just awesome. It just direct first party integration, works super well, pulls all the data in. If you don't know, I think that HubSpot's the best system, especially if you're running Salesforce. And so you got to be able to get your leads in to the marketing automation system and deploy the auto reply with the calendar immediately. And so work on that flow. And then from there, you got to keep working to increase attendance. But that one has been working really well. Inside of the ads, we're seeing variations between, on Facebook, $2 a registration and $80 a registration. And on LinkedIn, we're seeing variations between $7 a registration and $200 a registration. And it comes down to 3 core things in my mind. The first one is targeting. How specific can you get in the targeting? So if you're going after 3 audiences, like break them up into 3. The second thing, which goes hand in hand with this, is the creative. And so in the image or whatever you're going to use, if you're targeting CFOs, then put the best event for CFOs in the creative. Like call out the exact audience based on what you're targeting in the creative, not in the text headline that you can enter in, actually in the image. And the third one comes down to the offer. And so how are you positioning whatever you're doing in a way that resonates with them? So you can say it's the virtual summit for finance professionals, or you can call out one session that you think is the most interesting to them, or you can leverage the brand of the #1 speaker that you have. There's a lot of different ways to position the exact same offer to get someone to convert in. And then after that, you got to run your ops and everything else to get drive attendance. But I've spent a lot of time doing this over the past 3 or 4 weeks, and I've learned a lot. Right now, we are the objective is $20 registrations on LinkedIn and $7 to $12 registrations on Facebook. For some companies, Facebook actually ends up working better and has much better scale. Other companies, it's just not feasible on Facebook because of the quality or other things. So we have to go LinkedIn and just accept a higher price point. But that has been the best approach to get registrations. And then the second thing is you got to use your email list. And so if you have, I know companies that are sitting on 500,000 person email lists, so segment it, clean it, and then you can use email. That's going to be the #1 way to drive registrations from a cost standpoint. Obviously, email's free. And so those are some of the things that I've learned. Would be happy to answer deeper questions on that. I'm sure, G, you got some ideas, but that's how I kind of interpreted Lonnie's question. So virtual summits, I'm pretty high on. I am more bullish on episodic content like this. So instead of one event, 4 days, we're not flying to Miami for this event in a trade show. We do not need to have 4 days straight of your content. I would much rather you break it up into 6 months of 2-hour windows. I would much rather it be that way, but for some reason companies want to do the summit thing. I think they're going to struggle to get people to sit through that the whole time. We'll find out. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to close out on that, when I was at Sales Hacker, we did three major in-person conferences a year. We did 2 virtual conferences a year, and we did 2 webinars a week for a year straight, right? Or many years straight. So, we were really big on all types of content of this nature. And I will say that virtual events were successful and a high ROI marketing activity long before the coronavirus happened. So now I think that it will even be even more ROI, high ROI activity. But the only challenge now is that it's more cluttered because everyone's trying to do them. So we were doing them before everybody was trying to do them. And the reason why we were doing that was because, one, we had a big network and we had partners like the American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. We would, partner up with other big SaaS companies that weren't competitive with us. Like we had Close.io, or now Close.com. inside sales, right? So we had like a lot of big companies partnering up with us to do these events. And it's a great way to not only bolster the brand, but actually generate some marketing qualified leads. I don't want to say sales qualified leads. You're not going to get people who are looking to buy products. Like, people just want to check out an online event that's pretty cool, right? Especially now, people are bored, right? So they're just going to come to a virtual event because they're bored. And don't get your hopes too high on getting, being able to sell shit to people who come to a virtual event. You got to have a good follow-up plan around that. Otherwise it's pretty much going to be a bust. But I don't know, I guess to cap off, I would think of this primarily as like brand co-marketing and gaining respect of the audience. And then as a secondary goal, think about it as like, yeah, some top of funnel interest. We got probably some good marketing level qualified leads, right? We'll send some content streams after that, see what it can do. But, don't look at this as like, oh my gosh, like, we're not going to hit our number for the quarter. We're desperate. We need leads. And this is all we got left. You don't want to be doing that. You definitely don't want that mentality, because it's going to burn you.
Yeah. And let's talk about that for 1 second, specifically on the event follow-up. So I just want to play a game for a second, which is that how would all of you feel if, like, tomorrow after this event, one of my SDRs called you and said, hey, saw you at this event. Do you want to do business with me? Like, it completely changes the dynamic about how you feel about me, but brands don't see it that way. Like, we are here 100% to provide value. I'm completely against the outbound event follow-up. I think that it ruins the brand value that's created inside of the event. And so that might not be a popular opinion for the salespeople. It might actually be a popular opinion for the salespeople, because they call you and they know that you don't want to talk to them. And so that's one thing that I think I go against the grain with, in my opinion. I saw the response from a couple people on the video, like it resonated that that following up from a sales conversation from an event that had almost nothing to do with your product probably isn't the right idea.
Yeah, there's two tactical bits of advice that I will give you guys that will help you balance everything. And this is such good advice. I can't even believe I'm giving it away for free. You have to subscribe to my Patreon next time and pay me a monthly fee for this advice. Anyway, so there's a couple ways around this. One is, when you have the event registration page in the form, what you do is you add a question that says, would you like somebody from sales to follow up with you with more information about what we do? Yes or no? If yes, then you have permission. But you knock it out of the park right there, because you get the answer and you know for sure this person said, yes, I don't mind hearing more about what you have to say about how your service can help me or whatever. The ones who say no, you obviously never send them shit, never follow them up, don't call them, nothing. The only other thing you can do is, after the event, you send the replay link, and then you have a secondary CTA that says, oh, by the way, just in case you ever want to like learn more, here's a secondary CTA button, right? That is bundled in together with the follow-up email with the replay. So you give a little bit of value, actually a lot of value, because most people just want the replay anyway. But then you have it there just in case. But it's not like, hey, I saw that you signed up for this Gong webinar. I would love to have 15 minutes on the calendar to show you how our voice recording technology and sales call technology can give you in-depth analytics that can change your blah, 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 blah. So the problem with that is you're never going to sign up for that webinar again. You're going to unsubscribe and you're going to say, you know what? I thought this was a respectable company. I thought that they were cutting edge. I thought that they were different. I thought that they were ones that would zig when everyone else zags. But unfortunately, they're just, they're part of the masses now. They're part of the problem. So I'll end rant there.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit last week. And just to reiterate, when you're doing a marketing execution, just pick a lane. Are you doing brand or are you doing sales? And it's fine in either one. Just know which one you're doing. And so if you're doing a webinar or something like this, I highly recommend you just go full brand. no sales intent, no sales KPIs, nothing like that. And if you're doing something like bottom of the funnel social retargeting to drive demo requests, then that's cool. Just do it that way. Cool. So we got a
Chris, I gotta add one thing to this.
All right.
You know, it's really hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, like just like, and like marketers lack empathy for salespeople sometimes. And just like salespeople lack empathy for marketers, but Mark's like, ding, ding, yes. But like, here's the thing, like, imagine being that poor SDR who's got to call someone after they imagine like a VP or like a senior level person attended that webinar because they were bored or something. And you being that junior poor SDR, you're getting fed to the wolves. You got to call some senior level person with some stupid script. Do you think they want to talk to you? Hell no. Like this is just like torture. Like this isn't fair. Like this is why SDRs get so burnt out so fast, because like they're getting like, it's just not fair, right? Like how would you like to be the one that had to make that call? And that's why like I think like every company should have like their senior leaders or just from other departments, like become an SDR for like a week. Like do some of the shit that they got to do. It sucks. Hard work.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is a big one for marketers too that I did in 2016, is that before I handed leads to sales at the beginning, I called the leads and figured out what the process should be and figured out what the quality was and figured out how to tinker with that and what conversion points made sense to call and what conversion points made sense for them to stay in HubSpot. And so I did it first so that when I handed it off to sales, it's not like I was being an SDR, I was learning, I was testing the process that I built. And then once I handed it off to sales, I knew that like when I was doing demo requests were going to AEs because I went through and I called 10 and 8 out of the 10 were good. And so after that, the demo requests that came through got filtered through someone and went to AEs. Cool. We'll go, I saw something here. I got an interesting kind of point of view on this one. So there's a question from Matthew, which is, were those webinars evergreen or was it 2 fresh content webinars each week? That's for you, what you said with Sales Hacker G. Yeah.
So I guess the question is, were they evergreen webinars, new topics?
Were they evergreen, or were they evergreen, or were you creating new content every week?
So I guess those are kind of the same things to me. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, like it's always going to be evergreen. Like my thought is like, if it's evergreen, that means like it's not a topic that has to do with like news trends and you know, things like that, right? But yeah, I mean, it was always new. Like there's only and you know, slightly different angles each time, but like there's only so many times you could do like the ultimate SDR playbook, like right? So we did like put new angles to everything all the time, and really we knew our audience well. So we had these audiences. We had the SDR audience, the account executive audience, the sales ops audience, and then the executive audience, kind of the VP of sales and CRO, right? And then marketers / demand gen. So those were like the 5 core pillars. And we would always align our topics to, you know, who is this for? Like really? And sometimes there was overlap, some overlap, like with demand gen and SDRs, there was a lot of overlap. With sales ops and the executive audience, there was also a lot of overlap. But at the end of the day, it was always evergreen and new, fresh topics. Like we weren't like recycling stuff. Like something we did 3 months ago, we wouldn't run again. Like it was always new hosts, always new topics. It was always new, always fresh, because we also had a high degree of like returning people, like high return attendance rate. And we knew that if we recycled content that they would sniff that out. So to keep them coming back, it always had to be fresh. It always had to be new. And it's not as much work as you think, because we weren't like this group of isolated people that just kept creating content ideas. Like we would have a huge network of people that would be the guests, right? So we would kind of tailor it to the strength of the guest and align it back to the topic. And when you can get guests that are new and fresh all the time, and you get different guests and different types of people on the webinars, it gives you more flexibility to get a wider range of content?
For sure. Yeah. I hear quite a bit of people either messaging me or talking about trying to create evergreen content that builds this nice, everlasting sales funnel. And the truth is that, one, I don't think that those exist anymore if they ever did. And two, the idea of searching for an evergreen webinar ends up becoming an excuse as a reason not to create volume of content. And so when it comes down to it, like producing one webinar a week for some people feels like a lot. I work with a company, a $4 million SaaS company that has put out a webinar every week with over 500 people on each one. They have 3 people on their marketing team and their CEO runs the webinar. And so like it's possible. You just need to be committed to it. And then that ends up being your entire, like the value of having 500 of your target customers on a webinar once a week is much higher than almost every other marketing activity that you could do. And it's free except for the paid to drive registrations. And so, yeah, I feel like the term evergreen, whether it's in a PDF or a webinar or anything, ends up being a driver for people that are hoping that they don't have to create content, when actually like creating the content and the process of creating it and the process of figuring out what to do next and interviewing the guests and meeting new people and having new people on the show, the entire process is the value, not just the recording of one piece of content. Like that's, Gaetano and I are having this thing right now because one day I was traveling to Miami and I had some free time and I had a videographer there and I'd never met the guy before. I don't think we'd ever even talked. And I was just like, thought he was cool and thought we would have fun. And so I was like, hey, you want to like talk about demand gen on camera, blah, blah, blah. It probably sounded creepy when I asked you, but and now we did the video. It was awesome. If you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to. We went in deep tactical stuff and it's on our website. And now we're like doing the show, right? And so like the process of talking to different people leads you to places where you didn't think you'd be. So I'd highly encourage it.
Right on, man. I love it.
Cool. We got a question from Ariani. You want to ask it? We haven't had anyone talk yet. Let's do it.
Let me find the question. I don't remember what I asked.
It's how do you stand out?
Oh, yeah. So we have a lot of events at 6 Sense right now. And as a BDR, I'm encouraged to promote a lot of these events. And you know, one thing that I just been thinking, because I'm not a marketer, but in my mind, I'm thinking there's so many events. Like, I don't want to keep asking people to come to my event when I know there's like hundreds of events out there. People are getting overwhelmed. And let's say if I were to be a marketer, how would I approach marketing that event in a way that it's more compelling to my audience in general?
Do you believe that they would get value out of the event?
For some of them, yes. So we have one tomorrow on BDRs. You guys should come on how to set your BDRs for success. And I know that BDR managers would be interested. But let's say we have anything else on demand generation in general and 6 Sense. That's so general that I don't think I should be marketing that all the time to my prospects.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you. G, you want to take that?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I guess is the question, they want you to promote it on your LinkedIn feed. Is that it? They want you to post it?
No, send out emails, and they're not personalized emails. And we're getting to the point where we're like, these are not personalized, and we don't have the capacity to personalize each email so that it feels a little bit better. Okay,
I gotcha. So here, I'll tell you a dirty little secret about how we do events and virtual events and webinars. We have actually figured out that emails are not effective. They are just not, like, straight up, they're just not that, like, I know exactly the kind of emails you're talking about because I get them. In fact, Chris, I sent you one. I think it was a company called Tech Target. Chris, your famous post about ebook lead gen companies, right? Yeah. So, and a lot of companies that aren't purely ebook lead gen, they have a lot of these kinds of components to their strategy. But I get these all the time. We're having an event on ABM best practices for demand gen. You know, in this webinar, you will learn, and then 3 bullet points with like some ridiculous stats that like could be completely made up.
Yeah.
Click here now to reserve your spot, right? And I think that's what she's talking about. and you know, they just don't work because it's tone deaf. There's too many of them. And the buyers are just tired of it. Like there's just nothing in my mind that day made me think, I really need to watch a webinar or go to a webinar about like ABM best practices, right? Mm-hmm. So it goes back to like companies being too obsessed with volume of signups. Like I would care a lot more if I had 50 registrants that were highly engaged and cared a lot about ABM at that point in time and that fit that ICP, versus just like, let me send this blast and get like 500 people to sign up who just aren't going to give a shit, right? So that's like the mentality shift that like needs to happen. And it needs, unfortunately, to like hit the upper management over the head like a sledgehammer. Like they just need to get hit over the head with a sledgehammer and needs to wake up and say, you know, this is wrong, right? So that's like one part of it. The second part of it is that we figured this out. And the way we went about promoting events, which is so genius and so simple, and I'm going to tell you how we do it. We have actually a BDR who promotes webinars for us on LinkedIn by connecting with people on LinkedIn and starting conversations with them in a DM. And it's a very conversational approach. It's like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. whatever, I would love to connect. We're in similar industries. I'm looking to improve the content streams in my feed. It would be great to connect, blah, blah, blah. And then if they connect, you follow up and say something like, hey, I hope everything's going well in your business. Would you have any advice for like a BDR right now that's trying to promote, you see where I'm going with this? That's trying to promote a webinar about this topic for this buyer type, which is actually them. So you're flipping it a little bit. You're saying, what advice would you give me? Because people want to tell advice. They don't want to just be pitched something, right? So then when they come back and tell you some advice, you would say, oh, awesome, because my company is putting pressure on me to promote this event to people like you, and I'm failing, right? So you get the conversation started with them. And then because it's relevant, because it's going to be good quality, hopefully content, that will give you an opportunity to say to this person, thank you for the feedback you've given me. By the way, if you want to help me out and, check out that webinar, feel free to sign up, right? So that's one way we go about doing it. That's been more effective.
Do your BDRs really say that? Just like that?
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah, no lie. We DM people, and well, the first thing we do actually is, I tell them to find people who are in my network that I'm first connections with that fit that type and invite them and say, hey, I see you're a mutual connection of, Gaetano, he's the demand gen leader at my company. I saw you guys are connected. He asked me to hit you up. Actually, I saw that, you might be interested in this thing. What do you think? Right. So if there's a mutual connect, that's the route we go. If it's cold, we do the kind of familiarity building some kind of conversation and dialogue first. Would you be interested in something like this? Does this sound right? Can I get your feedback on how you would coach someone like me? I'm looking for feedback. I'm trying to get better as a SDR or a BDR. And I would really greatly appreciate any way you can help me get better at my craft. And you would be surprised at how it flips when you flip like that, how they're going to be more willing to engage with you rather than just, hey, here's a templated, like copy, paste. Come to our webinar. And then, and the other thing I don't like is that a lot of these companies start off with some like big, scary, potentially made up stat. Like, did you know that 80% of demand marketers aren't doing ABM and therefore their cost per acquisitions is rising? And a company like SysSense would be able to help you lower that CPA by 75%. Doesn't that sound great? Don't you want a 75% lower CPA? Right? So they say shit like that, which I don't like, because you would never approach somebody in a party and say shit like that. You would do the opposite. You would do the route that I just said. So I know this is kind of a long-winded answer, but that's how we get around the, stop blasting, stop sending and spraying, right? Because it just doesn't work anymore. Yeah,
and for the whether it's sales or marketing leaders out there, what I just said is that somewhere between $7 and $20 a registration. Last week we had a company that we got registrations for $1.93 on Facebook, high quality registrations. And so if you think about that, we got 500 registrations for $1,000. It's like not worth your BDR's time. Just run ads. So that's my feeling on it.
Yeah. That too. Exactly. Like retarget people that visited seriously, retarget every person that went to a pricing page, feature page, or product page in the last 30 days. There you go.
Okay, we got a question. Rob, you want to ask it? Rob McCarthy?
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can. What's up, man?
All right. So I'm in the B2B space. It seems everyone right now is creating insane amounts of work from home type content, whatever you want to call that, to the point where I'm getting so many emails, LinkedIn, Facebook, it's all there. Just curious for other suggestions for delivering value in this unique time.
Who are you selling to?
B2B.
Anyone? CFO, CMO, marketing manager, CNC machinist?
So current space is insurance specifically. So titles are a little bit different. Similar, basically selling to other sales reps, if you will, not necessarily C-level.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a sense for what they care about?
Yeah, I have normal, typical, it's all about time. At the end of the day, insurance is a low margin business and people are working on way more accounts than they should be. And so anything you can do to save them time is really the answer 99% of the time. I just use time a lot. But right now everyone's work from home. It's just a different atmosphere and that message doesn't seem to be hitting.
Cool, thank you. So is the work from home message resonating with anyone here? I don't think so. It's not working for me. The COVID updates in my LinkedIn feed have not been helpful. I have managed to stay the course in my content pillars and tried not to move over that way. So G, why don't you take a swing? So we got a little bit more context and maybe we'll need a follow-up to keep going on this. So why don't you take a swing on getting out of the work from home type content, which honestly, I feel like is a throwaway. I feel like someone could go to Google and get the same content pretty easily if they needed it. And so, yeah, I never suggest creating vanilla content. I just don't think I think it's just wasted effort.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one is interesting. Like Chris said, if you go to Google and search like how to manage a remote team, you're going to see, pages and pages and pages of like the same stuff, right? Like the saturation, like, here's the thing, like it's like everybody jumping on a bandwagon and all at the same time, and everyone's trying to do the same thing. Everyone's creating the same kind of content right now. Remote work tips, how to manage a remote team, how to build a remote team, how to communicate remotely, right? Like all these things. Remote work best practices webinar, the ultimate remote work ebook, telecommuting guide. There's only so many of these things you can read. And I get the hysteria around it because if you look at what is surging in terms of like what people are searching for, yes, there's no question that there is a demand right now, a higher demand for these topics. However, it may not even be relevant to your audience. And that's what Chris was kind of hitting on before. Like your audience may not care at all about this stuff, right? So I guess, like it all depends on the product and service you offer as well, because I'm in the cloud communication space. So it's actually a highly relevant message for us to say, you can use our technology for this. It enables remote teams. Like that's pure fact. So we can get away with it because it actually benefits the audience. Like it serves a point. We're not just saying it just to say it. Like if you're like, don't try to jam a square peg into a round hole. If your product has nothing to do with remote, then you shouldn't suddenly be talking about remote and trying to jam your product into that conversation. That doesn't work. If you are someone like Zoom, right? This is the greatest thing that could have ever happened to them. Nextiva, our business, right? Cloud communications is completely surging right now. It's relevant, right? If you are any one of those kinds of companies, then it makes sense. But if you're not, then I think like you have to go what Chris is doing and stay true to your content pillars. Don't deviate, at least not too much, and don't jump on any bandwagons just because it's the cool thing to do.
And another way that I look at this, just so people understand the level deeper, is supply and demand. And so I try and stay out of places where there's a lot of supply and it's already saturated. So I stay in places where there's low supply and high demand, ideally. And that requires a level of intuition and understanding of your audience. One thing that I would recommend to you, Rob, to try is to give 10 of those people a call and figure out what's going on in a non-sales situation. Another different approach to accomplish the same thing would be to ask if they want to create content with you about what's going on in the insurance industry right now and how people could adapt. And so those are two ideas that might be worth trying. From a content perspective, you might end up with some ideas, and then as you start getting the ideas, it can start flowing. So let's jump here. Matthew has a good question directed toward me. We'll see, G, if you want to jump in. So, and it's a good clarifier. I actually like the question a lot. It said, you posted earlier on your dislike of ebooks as a lead gen tool. Do you feel differently if the content is ungated in a pillar page format with the PDF download option? So the short answer, Matthew, is organic distribution of ebooks I'm fine with. I'm okay with it. And the paid distribution, I think, is a complete waste of money. However, to go a level deeper on it is I don't believe that the the juice is not worth the squeeze. And so I would most companies put out an ebook a quarter. It takes them a ton of time. And in all that time, they were creating the ebook and the pillar page and the other content on it. They could have made a webinar a week and had 500 people on it. And so I feel like, especially for smaller companies, you have to make choices. And when I stopped doing ebooks and started moving to episodic content and building an audience, there needs to be a volume of content. So how do you, unless you can put out an ebook every week, I don't see how you can get to a place where you have a significant volume stream of content for it to work. You have a follow-up to that? That's kind of like my hot take on it.
Sorry, were you asking me if I had a
follow-up? I was
asking
Matthew, but I didn't really direct it to him.
Oh no, I didn't know if you were asking or not.
Yeah.
I was jumping in and out. I was dealing with my kids. But,
Understood.
But yeah, no, I largely agree with you. I mean, definitely I started out I was doing content, doing ebooks, and it was the real classic PDF behind a form. Leads sucked. Didn't really amount to much. So I've started ungating and distributing that. And I really have been kind of nonplussed with the results so far, to the point where I'm thinking about trying to repurpose largely these ebook efforts that I've done into really what you said, episodic kind of content, maybe going through each of those parts of the ebook and recording my subject matter expert in like an interview format, or I even have the interview format for some of these, and then just sort of repurposing it almost as like a video or a podcast clip almost, and then, redeploying it. Just trying to think of other ways to make use of that content aside from letting it sit in my resources center and, get a couple leads now and then, but largely not really the kind of volume that, you would have expected in an ebook to get maybe 3-4 years ago. I think it's just kind of the way people consume that has changed.
Yeah. I'm going to offer a slightly different point of view on this. And Chris, I don't know if you're going to like this. You never heard me say this before. This is new. But it really actually depends on the traffic type that is about to consume this content, and I'll give you a practical example. If you have a product page, right? Let's say it's talking about a specific product that your company offers, and the options on that page are, book a demo or sign up for a trial, something like that. That's obviously the main call to action. That's like the very business outcome focused call to action. A secondary call to action, because not everyone's ready for that yet. The secondary call to action could be an ebook download from that product page, right? So there's a drastic difference if a visitor downloads an ebook from a product page than, say, like a blog pop-up or a cold ad or somewhere else on the site that doesn't have high intent of buying or decent intent of buying, right? On a PPC page, right? If you're bidding on, let's say, CRM system for real estate, right? And that traffic goes to that CRM system for real estate page, and the main call to action is, sign up for a free trial. Maybe they're not ready for that yet. So really the dilemma is, do you want them to bounce or buy? Or do you want to have a fallback, that little cute little safety net there, so it could catch them as a secondary fall-off point? And then you can start testing, maybe it's worth having a product consultant or a expert consultant, whatever, right? Hit that ebook download person with a follow-up, because the intent of that traffic is much different in nature than a cold ad to an ebook, or a blog pop-up to an ebook, or an ebook embedded into a very top of funnel blog article that's getting a lot of Google traffic, right? So I would suggest thinking about where that ebook plays into the funnel, so to speak. Like, where is the intent of that traffic? Where does that ebook fit in, right, to that equation? And then experiment with a few things. And you still might find that ebook downloads that come from a product page are still shit. They just wanted the content. That might be the case, but you don't know. So that's where I'll leave it off.
All right. It's a good thought. I mean, one of the things I do on these forums when people want to download that PDF is like you did with the webinar form. I ask them point blank, are you currently evaluating products like this for your company? And if it's a yes, then I'm like, okay, well, guess what? My sales guy can and should follow up. And if it's a no, then leave them alone and let them be. And if they come back, either through like a retargeting effort or something of that sort, then it was destined. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of using those same sorts of tactics to try to assess, if that person's serious or not. And I do that, what you mentioned, like on the product pages in question, I definitely do link out to that sort of pillar content and even blog content within it. It's like I feel like a recommended reading section sort of on that product page. And that way that lets people go to like, all right, if you want more short form blog content, you got that. If you want long form pillar content, you have that. I got, you embed videos, you make it as content rich as you possibly can to just meet them where they're at. And yeah, that's been effective for sure. I guess speaking more about what my overall attitude has been about ebook efforts lately. Cause like Chris said, it's a lot of effort. It takes me and my team out in Germany, it takes us almost a year to get two efforts out, because there's just so much effort that these guys put into it. And it's just like you said, the juice isn't always worth the squeeze for some of these things that we're putting out.
I do not believe that it is. Cool. So let me check. We might have got a couple other questions coming in. Okay, we have one other question, and then I have actually a question for G that we'll close on, which I think will be pretty cool. So the question is, or Christian, do you want to ask it? Go ahead. I think you're on mute. You might actually be fully muted, so I'll ask it. It says,
I'm back now, sorry.
We're good, cool.
So yeah, my question is just around like when in the life cycle a SaaS company would begin considering investing in distribution strategies, and then follow up at that point, what do they care most about? Generating more qualified demos or other things?
Cool. Take it away, man.
Yeah, I want to hear what you're going to say.
You got it.
And I think his question is really around paid, it seems.
Yeah, you
was
can
it more
clarify, is it
directed
on
at
paid
paid,
or
Christian?
anything?
It was
Yeah,
he's saying it's more
yeah.
about paid. All right. So yeah, Chris, go for it.
Okay, cool. So I think this depends on a lot of factors. The first one being is, what is the go-to-market strategy? Is it sales heavy? Is it product led? Is it marketing led into product led? What is the go-to-market strategy is probably the first thing to think about. If it's product led, you're going to want to figure out how to get people into the product. And so at that point, you would probably implement it first. And so that's kind of like the first like cutoff point that I'll look at. A lot of companies, especially ones that either I've consulted for or been a part of, is start outbound. I believe it's a less efficient path to get from 0 to $1 million ARR, but a lot of companies do it and then decide to layer on marketing after that. My feeling is, if you have enough money to hire 6 BDRs and 4 AEs, you should have a few less salespeople and have 2 people that are creating content. So it's like, at whatever point you're starting to develop the semblance of an organization, maybe somewhere between 5 and 15 people, I think would be the right time. Like, I'll give you an example from me, because this actually maybe work for everyone. And I think I've been thinking about how to write this in a post. So we'll kind of do a little market research here, which is a lot of people, when they have a company like mine, the first person that they'll hire is a sales rep. And I hired a videographer, was the first hire. And so it's just interesting. And then the company was able to grow to over 7-figure ARR in 10 months because I know how to market. Like, it is a marketing agency. I know some people are better at sales and things like that, but like, that growth is pretty drastic on the back of just organic LinkedIn video marketing. And so there's SaaS companies right now that have 15 or 20 salespeople beating their heads against the wall to try and add $100 million net new logo, because it's 100% outbound. And so my feeling is as soon as possible. And then I guess we'll jump into the follow-up, which is like, should they be leaning toward demos or other things like that? It depends on the ACV of your product. In my mind, if you're selling a $99 a month product, you're trying to get people into a free trial, then yeah, I think that you could probably run ads and have like your CAC LTV type conversion rate performance marketing calculations and get it done if you had a good enough product and you knew how to do it well. I think that you could win. At the higher ACV products, that's not going to be a winning strategy based on my experience doing it testing it at a lot of different companies. Probably over 20 companies now have tested that, and it has not worked. And so at the higher ACVs, most likely longer sales cycles, more people involved, more complex buying process. Like, you're not going to just run a video with a direct response, get a demo, and have that convert to a sale, or even like a dramatic sales process. And so instead of that, I would lean on high volume video with inorganic distribution, ideally leveraging people inside of the market that you're selling to. And for a lot of reasons that I've talked about before, the process of me reaching out to G and reaching out to Justin Welsh and getting to know Josh Braun and all these different people, and then these people know me, and then Josh Braun is talking with someone, they're talking about marketing, they say, hey, have you heard about that Chris Walker person? I met him, I did this event with him, that was good. You go and do that with 20 people in the industry, then they know about you, and then they tell other people about you or your company. And so people don't see the intangibles in the activities. Like, the process is the most important part. So I'll let you kind of go a little deeper on that one. Go ahead, G.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to add. I think
right
you
on.
nailed it, man. Yeah,
Cool.
that was great.
So last question that I have for you, and maybe I'll have a couple thoughts after, depending on how you answer. So we got a question. We'll save that and we'll answer it on the next episode. Appreciate that. I think it's Kamarin, or I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. We'll get to that question next episode. So the question to close, And I see this a ton in comments. I see it a ton in DMs. And so I think we should go, maybe we could spend like quite a bit of time, because marketers on here, I think will appreciate this. And the people that aren't on here, I think will appreciate the content afterwards, which is the question that I get is, how do you convince leadership about how to do marketing in the kind of the way that we're talking about? I get it. I probably get it 100 times a month.
Oh man. Okay. This, I actually haven't had to deal with this problem because the companies that I work with are usually the companies that just get it. Like, I don't even, like, part of my language, I don't even fuck with you if you don't get it like this. Like, I can't waste my time trying to explain why this is the right way to go. Like, if you're still stuck in that, like, in that mentality from 1999, then like, I don't know. I don't really belong there, because it conflicts so deeply with my core beliefs as a marketer, my core beliefs in business, my values as a person. The conflict is just so strong that I just don't belong there, and therefore I just can't work with you. That's really my honest, unfiltered answer. If there's some degree of flexibility, and you can, and your marketing leadership and company leadership can be flexible and start to see the light a little bit, and they want to figure something out, like they want to find that balance between like being authentic, offering a ton of value without being sales pitchy, and being forward thinking, trying to treat their business like a media brand would, and not like a dry, boring software company, then you may have some ability to, work with them on it, right? It just depends on how flexible and willing they are to see differently and try new things. How willing are they to try stuff, right? Like, it's going to be very scary for them ungating that content. It's going to be very scary for them not following up after a webinar with a sequence, right? It's going to be very scary for them to not send that blast, even that word blast, right? Like, we got to cut that out of the vocabulary. So, like, really, it comes down to that. Like, how willing are they to change, to see change and feel change and experience change? And if they're not, you shouldn't be there. You should just go work for a company that believes in what you believe in. And that's really all I can say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have a different experience than you. So I've worked at several companies as an employee early on in my career that didn't have the beliefs that I have about marketing. And the first one that I worked for, I thought I think it went exactly how it needed to go, which is that I went in and I was able to transform the results of an organization to the level as far as I could go before I would outrun the company, if that makes sense. And so I hit a point where there was no more that I could do, and it was hurting my career every day to be there. And then I had to go. And so that's kind of one piece, is that I think there is a lot of value in attempting to move an organization, because the experience you get is an organizational change, which is a very interesting thing if you want to get into management and other places like that long-term in your career. So I think there's a little hope in trying that one. And that doesn't work, or if you get to a place where you can't grow anymore, it's time to go. And then the second one that I worked at, I was 2 videos in to a long-form video strategy, and my sales counterpart and the CEO came to me and said, "Where are the leads?" And I literally made 2 videos. And if they had just given me a chance to do the things that I'm doing right now, that company would probably go from $1 million ARR to 10 million if they let the video strategy come to life. I'm very glad that they didn't, because I left and started my company, and it's exactly where I need to be. But the point of me saying that is that at that point, I had already been through that in another company, and it was just like if we're going to talk about ROI after 2 videos, I'm out. And so I know I have empathy that is a scary thing to do as a marketer, especially early in your career, your manager or something like that, to leave. I will say, and given the climate, right, obviously please don't take that advice directly during the climate right now. But I think the take home is that your career is determined long-term based on a couple of things. I think the number one is your actual skills. And you get actual skills by working with people that are better at those things than you. And so you need to surround yourself with people that are experts that you can grow in and different places like that. And so if you're in a place where you're not aligned on those types of ideas, I would highly recommend, and there are plenty of people out there, and you could find them pretty much all on the internet pretty easily, to find a group of people that are aligned with the things that you believe in. Because even if you have to take a pay cut to do it, and again, I know that's not feasible for some people. I did it once in my career. I took a pay cut to go to a different job with people that were better at the things than the place that I worked at before. If you have to do that long term, it works out in your career, because knowing your stuff and getting results and working with good people plays itself out over time.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect kind of segue to wrap this up. And I'll just share something that's highly relevant to what Chris was saying. An excellent point from Chris, which I agree with a lot. And I actually did, back in 2016, work with a company where we didn't see eye to eye in terms of marketing strategies and just core beliefs and values around, like, what should marketing do? What are the right things? How should we be treating the blog, for instance? And my manager at Pipe Drive at the time was that same thing that Chris was saying about the videos. After 2 videos, where's the leads? Same thing with the blog. Why doesn't the blog drive leads? There's no leads coming to the blog. It must not be valuable. We should probably stop doing this. We should just treat it as a product information hub, product release blog post, right, about this new feature that came out, and it should just be company updates, and that's it. And long story short, I realized that was just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many more problems that came from after that. And I realized that the only way I could really enhance my skills, like Chris was saying, your actual skills, you need to sharpen that. Iron sharpens iron, and if you got iron and you're dealing with like a rubber duck, it's not going to sharpen each other. So you need to leave that situation. So I actually left Pipe Drive 1 month before early. I was in so much pain. I was in so much hurt that I couldn't exercise my wings and fly and try the strategies that I wanted, that I actually left the company 1 month early than I wanted to. And my stocks didn't vest, and I didn't care. I was in so much torment that I said, I don't even care about the stock vesting. I'm leaving. And I left to go to a startup where somebody was willing to say, you know what, you're a young, up and coming, hungry guy. I'm going to let you run wild with this thing. That's what you want. If you really feel like, I know I have what it takes, I just need someone to believe in me and let me do my thing. If I'm going to fail, I'll fail, but I'll correct myself. Like, you need to go to a startup. You need to go to like a company that has less than 50 employees, and you need to say, look, I'm hungry. I was at a company before this that would not let me express my ideas, that would not let me try anything. They were too controlling, too restrictive, and it's fucking up my growth. And I'm never going to get to where I want to be in my career because of these stupid, restrictive people that are closed-minded, and they just don't want to let people try shit. And they're not fostering my growth. So I had to leave. And you need to go to a startup that's like less than 50 people, and you need to go to the CEO and say, I really want to work here. I see you have this opportunity for, leadership role. I've never had a leadership position before, but I've been in this and this and this and this. And, I feel like I'm ready to just bust my ass and grind. But the one commitment I need from you is the promise that you're going to let me do what I want to do. You're going to let me fail. If I fail, I promise you that I will learn from my mistakes, and it won't happen twice. But I need you to give me that freedom, that leash. I need to be able to experiment. I need runway. So my back to you on that is, I'm going to bust my ass. Like, I'm going to go so hard for this company. You have no idea. You're never going to find anybody that's going to work harder than me. But in return, the one thing I'm looking for is openness and freedom to execute and run strategies that I want to run. And that's really the only way it's going to happen. And that's what I did. I went to a company, a startup company, Sales Hacker. That was a 30-person company. Let me run my plays. And in a year and a half, boom, the company gets acquired by Outreach. and you know, and now I'm riding off into the sunsets, right? I'm out of that equation now, and I'm into a bigger equation. So you got to figure this out. You got to navigate carefully. If you're in one of those situations, you got to really make that tough call. And sometimes you got to pull the cord, but when you put the plug back into the wall, you're going to be recharged. So I guess we'll close out on that point right there, Chris. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, for sure. No, that was perfect. The point that you made on the CEO, I think, is super important about how much the CEO matters, company large or small, to what happens in marketing. And so if you're going to a role and you're going to take on a leadership or a middle management type role, I would highly recommend that you follow or understand the CEO's views on marketing before you join. Cool. So this was episode 3. Appreciate all of you again. Thank you so much. We have an hour blocked, but for somehow we go 20 minutes over every time, and I love it. So thank you all. We'll be back. We're actually doing a special time coming on Thursday for our friends in Europe. And so it's Thursday at noon Eastern. We got a lot of requests from Europe. So if you'd like to join on that one, feel free. And then we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming next Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Again, just really appreciate all of you. Thank you for the questions. I hope this was valuable, and have a great night.